The Galactic Council chambers were a sight to behold, a vast circular hall with rows of seats arranged in tiers that ascended towards the ceiling, a ceiling painted with holographic stars and drifting galaxies. Each seat was occupied by a representative from a distinct alien species, some insected, others crystalline, a few resembling plants, and many beyond human comprehension. These representatives were the elite among their worlds, chosen to speak on behalf of entire civilizations. Today, however, there was a rare tension thick in the air, visible in the way representatives shifted uncomfortably or glanced at each other with expressions that could only be described as concern. The council had gathered for an urgent matter, one that had been sparking heated discussion for days. Murmurs rose and fell in cycles, creating a low hum, the collective unease spilling over as anticipation grew. At the heart of the issue was a single species, one that had refused, in no uncertain terms, to negotiate. That species was humanity. For centuries, the Galactic Council had governed interstellar relations, functioning as a blend of parliament, judiciary, and regulatory body for every civilization advanced enough to reach the stars. Its role was clear: it provided resources, mediated conflicts, and fostered peace across the galaxy in exchange for allegiance and cooperation. Species that joined the Council willingly adhered to its laws and benefited from interstellar trade, technology exchanges, and perhaps most importantly, protection. In return, the Council expected deference, a small price to pay, in their view, for peace and stability. But humanity, it seemed, had no intention of falling in line. A murmur of discontent arose from the far corner where the representatives of the Cora cluster were gathered. The Cora were one of the Council's oldest and most respected members, their scaled, reptilian forms known for their wisdom and cautious diplomacy. Their representative, Ch-Tar, hissed his disapproval loudly enough for nearby delegates to hear. They refuse to negotiate? After centuries of tradition, they simply deny us? The arrogance! Another voice chimed in, this time from the winged and luminous Arisian representative, Narakoth. Her tone was calm but tinged with suspicion. Perhaps they believe they are self-sufficient, too powerful to need us. Their defiance could be a mere show of strength. Near the center of the chamber, a tall, crystalline being from the Echelon Federation clanged its crystalline hands together to speak. Its voice, like the chime of struck glass, rang through the chamber. We must consider them a threat. This refusal is an act of hostility, a rejection of peace. They bring instability. Several alien delegates nodded their assent, the idea of humanity as a potential adversary taking root. But not everyone saw things that way. A few representatives from younger, more rebellious races exchanged approving glances. A humanoid with bioluminescent skin, the delegate from the jungle-covered world of Trilon, seemed almost amused. Maybe they're just different, he suggested, a slight smirk playing across his face. Or perhaps they see something we don't. Or perhaps, came a gruff voice from the insected Tau representative, they are fools who will soon regret this decision. The debate continued, with voices rising and falling, each species interpreting humanity's defiance through the lens of their own experiences. The Council had not encountered resistance like this in generations. For some, humanity's stance was a challenge to the established order. For others, it was a foolish gamble destined for failure. Just as tensions seemed ready to boil over, a hologram flickered to life at the chamber's center, its blue light illuminating the vast hall. The Council members fell silent, their varied eyes fixed on the flickering image. It was a transmission from Earth. It played a message, brief but resolute, a statement from human representatives on behalf of their species. We appreciate your invitation. A human voice began, calm and firm. However, we must respectfully decline. Humanity has chosen its own path. We have no intention of submitting to the authority of the Galactic Council. We seek to remain independent, to govern ourselves, and to forge our own alliances as we see fit. We harbor no hostility, but we will not bend. The words echoed across the council chamber, leaving a stunned silence in their wake. The hologram blinked off, plunging the hall into a charged quiet. For a moment, no one spoke. Representatives exchanged shocked glances, some visibly agitated, others genuinely baffled. The humans had said no. They had denied an invitation that, in the Council's view, no sane species would refuse. The elder representative from the Ordari, a species known for its long life and almost preternatural wisdom, spoke in a voice heavy with concern. To reject the Council is to reject order itself. Do they truly understand the consequences? A delegate from the warlike Turnak, a species with a culture rooted in honor and conquest, broke the silence with a laugh, a sound like grinding stones. Perhaps they wish to prove their strength. Perhaps they hope we'll see them as worthy adversaries. This notion sparked an undercurrent of admiration in some corners of the chamber. Humans, unlike many species, seem to possess a quality of raw audacity, a fearlessness that others found both reckless and strangely compelling. Others, however, were far from impressed. A counselor from the Kriyan collective, a species with a hive mind, buzzed with contempt. They are nothing but primitive fools. Arrogant and short-sighted. They will soon realize that isolation brings ruin. Yet there was a subtle acknowledgement, even among the skeptics, that humanity had set itself apart. It was rare for any species to openly refuse the Council's guidance, rarer still to make such a declaration so decisively. Some Council members were even intrigued. It was as if humanity's defiance had uncovered a part of them they had forgotten, a time before they themselves had submitted to the Council's rules. In the end, the chamber dissolved into a flurry of whispered exchanges, panicked analyses, and growing resentment. Humanity's statement was a gauntlet thrown into the heart of the Galactic Order, a reminder that, despite all their advancements in unity, they had never before encountered a species that would so bluntly turn its back on the Council. As the Council chambers emptied, the representatives departed with mixed emotions. For some, humanity was a new threat to be dealt with; for others, a question to be pondered. In every corner of the chamber, however, one sentiment was clear: humanity had changed the galaxy's landscape with a single, unyielding statement. And whether it was out of fear, respect, or a combination of both, the Council knew they could not ignore the humans any longer. Humanity's story is one marked by struggle, ambition, and an unyielding drive toward independence. In the early centuries of their existence, humans were plagued by conflict and division, scattered across nations and borders. Wars raged over resources, ideologies, and power, and for a time, it seemed as if their own self-destructive tendencies would lead to their end. But humanity was relentless. Each conflict was a crucible, a hardening of their collective spirit. Over centuries, they advanced, outgrowing their divisions as they sought the stars together. Technological leaps were staggering. Humanity moved from primitive tools to faster-than-light travel in a fraction of the time it had taken other species. For all their flaws, humans had an unmatched ability to adapt, to learn, and to unite when faced with an external threat. At the heart of their evolution lay certain unbreakable values. They had endured enough history under tyrants and despots to recognize the price of freedom. Self-reliance, autonomy, and a fierce desire to chart their own path became intrinsic to their identity. Generations of struggle had taught them that real progress meant facing their challenges head-on, even if it meant defying convention. Independence wasn't just a preference, it was an identity. When humanity reached the stars, they carried this mindset with them. It was this spirit that led them to say no to the Galactic Council, a choice that no species had dared to make before. Leading humanity's charge were individuals who shared a unified vision but represented a diversity of backgrounds. Among them was Commander Elias Grant, a veteran with a deep mistrust of foreign influence. He had witnessed firsthand the consequences of interference by more advanced species on less developed ones and saw the Council's influence as a gilded cage. Grant believed humanity could not afford to lose control over its fate. To him, and others like him, submission to the Council would be a betrayal of everything humanity had fought for. Then there was Dr. Lian, a renowned scientist and advocate for independent exploration. Ng argued that the Council's regulations would stifle innovation and discovery, turning humanity into a satellite culture rather than an equal partner among the stars. These leaders voiced concerns that resonated deeply with the rest of humanity. They saw the Council as a group that acted under the guise of unity and peace, but ultimately imposed a collective will that prioritized stability over true freedom. In every member species, they noticed the dilution of individuality, a gradual molding into something conformist and controlled. To human leaders, the Council's influence was not a path to peace. It was a slow erosion of autonomy, a fate they had fought hard to avoid on Earth. They feared that under the Council's authority, humanity would lose what made them unique, their capacity to break convention, to question, to grow from their own failures. Humanity's stance went beyond just a refusal to submit. It was a philosophical divergence. The Council viewed the galaxy as a delicate ecosystem requiring regulation and oversight, with each species taking its place in a larger hierarchy. Humanity, however, saw the stars as a frontier, a place to be explored, challenged, and even conquered, if necessary. They viewed conflict not as something to be avoided at all costs but as a necessary part of growth. This perspective wasn't driven by an appetite for chaos but by a belief in the power of adversity. They valued resilience over comfort, risk over safety. Humanity saw strength in diversity and individuality, traits they feared the Council's oversight would homogenize into something bland and static. For them, each civilization had the right to forge its path, even if that path was fraught with hardship. Their decision to refuse the Council was, therefore, an assertion of these values. The Council's attempts to guide and regulate them were seen as the first steps toward dependency. Humanity had learned from observing other species that there was often a high cost to the Council's benevolent influence. Many civilizations that had joined willingly eventually grew reliant on the Council's resources and lost the drive to innovate independently. Some had even faced internal decline, their distinct cultures absorbed into the Council's universal norms. Humanity wanted no part of it. They would not allow an external force to dictate their fate or define their limits. Despite their resolve, humanity was acutely aware that their refusal to negotiate might provoke the Council into taking action. The Council was not used to defiance, and humanity's leaders knew they risked isolation or worse. They were aware of the Council's reach, its extensive alliances, and its ability to impose sanctions or even engage militarily if it deemed a species too unruly. But humanity was ready for this possibility. Their leaders had prepared defenses, not as an open declaration of war, but as a statement that they would stand their ground. Strategic alliances had been considered with other independent entities, and their fleets, though comparatively small, were equipped with the best technology they could develop. It was a calculated stance, one that balanced readiness with restraint. Behind closed doors, discussions among human leaders continued, each aware that their decision could lead to a standoff. The Council's response was unpredictable. No species had ever rejected them so firmly. Humanity knew this defiance might invite hostilities, but they were willing to bear that risk. Better to face the unknown as a free species than to accept a gilded cage. The preparations were both practical and symbolic, a message to the galaxy. Humanity would not back down. They would uphold their right to determine their future, come what may. The Galactic Council had faced countless crises over the centuries, but humanity's outright refusal to join its ranks struck a nerve that few had anticipated. From the moment humanity's message had been delivered, the Council was in an uproar. The Grand Chamber, once a place of measured debates and decorum, was now a whirlwind of animated voices, each species speaking with the urgency that only fear and confusion could bring. The Council members were sharply divided. Some factions were quick to call for a show of force, unwilling to let humanity's defiance go unpunished. At the forefront was Vrashkor, the hardline representative from the mighty Zorath Empire. With a towering, armored frame and eyes that burned with an unyielding fire, Vrashkor spoke with disdain for humanity's stubbornness. He argued that allowing a single species to disregard Council authority could set a dangerous precedent, one that might encourage other civilizations to follow suit. To him, humanity's refusal was not just a slight, it was an existential threat to the order the Council had painstakingly built. Make an example of them, Vrashkor demanded, his deep voice resonating across the chamber. If we let this slide, we risk destabilizing everything we have worked for. Other species will see us as weak, unable to enforce our own rules. Humanity must be reminded of their place. There were those who agreed with Vrashkor, rallying around his call for a swift and uncompromising response. The Council's enforcers, the militant races with histories rooted in conquest, felt humanity needed to be subdued, their independence crushed before it grew into something dangerous. The notion of a species standing outside the Council's purview, answering to no one, was deeply unsettling. These voices argued that isolation alone would only embolden humanity, giving them time to build alliances or develop weapons. Force, they insisted, was the only way to secure the Council's future. But opposing them were representatives who believed that force was a dangerous path, one that could spark a conflict the Council was unprepared to face. Among these was Solent HFY, the soft-spoken ambassador from the Alvar coalition, known for its commitment to diplomacy and harmony. Solent HFY, with her iridescent wings and serene demeanor, reminded the Council of the potential cost of an all-out confrontation. She spoke with calm conviction, warning that humanity's defiance stemmed not from malice but from a deeply rooted sense of autonomy. To resort to violence, she began, her voice smooth and resonant, is to admit failure. Humanity is not the first species to value independence, yet none before have taken such a bold stand. There is something we could learn from them if we approach them with respect, not fear. This view, however, was met with derision from Vrashkor's faction, who labeled Solent HFY and her supporters as weak, unable to grasp the threats lurking behind humanity's words. Tensions flared as the chamber filled with accusations and counterarguments, each representative vying to sway the Council's stance. The more militant factions saw Solent HFY's approach as a dangerous naivete. To them, humanity's refusal was nothing less than a rebellion, a blatant disregard for order, and anyone advocating for negotiation was risking the Council's credibility. As the debates raged on, new fears began to emerge, casting a shadow over even the most hardened Council members. Humanity, for all its apparent inexperience in galactic affairs, was developing a reputation for technological ingenuity and adaptability that many species found unsettling. Reports surfaced of their advancements in areas that the Council itself struggled to regulate. Some Council members whispered of secret human technologies, experimental drives, and weapons that could tip the balance of power. There was talk of dark matter reactors, and rumors of unknown military capabilities, speculations fueled by human secrecy and the absence of Council oversight. Anxiety mounted as these rumors spread, and with it, paranoia. Representatives began to wonder if humanity, left unchecked, might eventually become a force capable of challenging the Council. The Ordari representative, an elder with centuries of experience, voiced a concern that struck a chord with many. The humans are unpredictable. Their rapid evolution and fierce independence are qualities we have not encountered in generations. If we cannot understand them now, how will we manage them once they grow stronger? These words echoed through the chamber, seeding fear in the minds of those still undecided. The possibility of a rising, unpredictable force was enough to make even the more peaceful representatives uneasy. The Council's unity, once unshakable, was now fracturing as conflicting opinions deepened the divisions. Yet, despite these fears, there was a faction within the Council determined to take a different approach. They saw in humanity not a threat, but a chance to broaden the Council's understanding. The Trilon delegate, with his bioluminescent skin and optimistic outlook, argued passionately that humanity's unique perspective could bring new insight and resilience to the Council. His view was met with resistance from the militant factions, who dismissed him as idealistic. Nevertheless, the idea of engaging humanity respectfully, rather than through coercion, was compelling to some. This Council was founded on principles of cooperation and growth, the Trilon delegate asserted. What message do we send if our first reaction to defiance is force? Humanity values autonomy, yes, but that does not make them hostile. If we open a dialogue based on mutual respect, we may find that they have as much to teach us as we have to teach them. Despite his words, the militant factions scoffed, viewing such diplomacy as weakness. The Council's internal conflict deepened, factions growing more entrenched in their positions. On one side there were those who saw humanity as a dangerous anomaly to be controlled. On the other, those who felt that open-minded engagement could yield unexpected benefits. Days passed, and the debates spiraled, each session ending without resolution. The council was at a standstill, a fractured entity caught between conflicting ideologies. The voices calling for force grew louder, but they were matched by the cautious voices advocating for restraint. For the first time in its history, the council faced an impasse, unable to find common ground or a unified path forward. The air in the chamber grew thick with tension, the weight of the decision pressing down on every representative. In the end, the council left the chamber as divided as when they had entered, unresolved and wary. Humanity's defiance had not only shaken the council's authority but had also laid bare the cracks within its own structure. And as the representatives returned to their respective worlds, each side preparing for the uncertainty ahead, it was clear that humanity's choice had triggered something far greater than anyone could have anticipated. Humanity had been watching the Galactic Council closely since the initial standoff, observing each faction, each argument, and every hint of disarray. They knew that the Council, for all its authority, was not a monolithic entity. It was, in fact, a complex web of races with differing values and interests. Through a blend of advanced surveillance and well-placed informants, humanity had gained a clear view into the Council's escalating internal conflict, recognizing that their own refusal had struck a nerve far deeper than anticipated. Human intelligence networks meticulously monitored Council communications, intercepting signals and decoding diplomatic chatter that revealed the Council's fractured stance. Humanity's leaders saw the opportunity that lay within that chaos and prepared accordingly, carefully assessing their next move. Rather than reacting impulsively, humanity took a calculated approach. They would not escalate the situation prematurely or show their hand too soon. Instead, they opted to wait, to watch as the Council struggled to find consensus. Every diplomatic communique, every clandestine meeting among Council members was carefully analyzed, its implications weighed. This information was fed into strategic simulations and contingency plans. Humanity's leaders met daily, discussing every potential outcome and every response the Council might consider, from economic sanctions to an all-out assault. Through this vigilant preparation, humanity's stance was clear: they would not bend, but neither would they rush blindly into conflict. They understood that patience was as much a weapon as any starship or weaponry. Yet humanity was no stranger to preparing for the worst. Across Earth and the colonies, defensive systems were activated. Orbital platforms were reinforced, fleets organized into strategic formations, and planetary defense networks enhanced. Military and engineering experts collaborated to create adaptive defense systems, networks that could operate autonomously if cut off from central command. Weapons systems were upgraded with cutting-edge technology, incorporating advances in fields from energy shielding to gravitational manipulation. The goal was clear: if the Council chose force, humanity would be ready to meet them. Beyond Earth's orbit, humanity had been quietly forging alliances with independent factions who, like themselves, had resisted Council dominance. Small, powerful coalitions of like-minded species and renegades who had no love for the Council were drawn to humanity's defiance. Some were advanced traders, others were renowned engineers or mercenaries. These alliances were kept secret, bound by a shared commitment to autonomy, and they offered humanity both valuable resources and strategic support. For the citizens of Earth, the message was one of unity and resilience. They understood that their defiance was not just a stand against the Council but a test of their own strength and independence. Even as they fortified their defenses, humanity's leaders decided to reach out subtly to the Council factions who had shown sympathy for their cause. Through encrypted channels and trusted intermediaries, they opened quiet dialogues with those Council members who might understand humanity's desire for independence. They didn't propose formal alliances but instead conveyed a simple, powerful message: humanity valued respect and mutual benefit over submission and control. This subtle outreach, while carefully contained, sparked ripples within the Council itself. The sympathetic factions, already in the minority, now saw humanity not as a rogue species, but as a potential ally willing to stand on equal footing. It didn't take long for this outreach to reach the ears of those who favored more aggressive tactics, deepening the Council's divide. As these quiet conversations took root, humanity prepared a demonstration of their capabilities. This was not intended as a threat but as a message. They were prepared to defend their sovereignty. Without warning, a fleet of human ships appeared in a contested zone on the fringes of Council space. The ships executed a carefully coordinated maneuver, displaying precision and power and a silent message of strength. They showcased newly developed defensive technologies, energy shields capable of withstanding sustained fire, and a sophisticated array of drones that moved in perfect formation. No weapons were fired, no hostile acts were taken, only a demonstration of humanity's readiness. The Council received this display with mixed reactions. Some members watched in awe, recognizing the message of restraint and the unspoken promise of self-defense. Others, particularly the more aggressive factions, saw it as an outright challenge, a refusal to accept Council authority. For those advocating for negotiation, the demonstration became evidence that humanity was neither reckless nor unprepared, that they would respond with proportionality if provoked. Yet for others, it fed into their growing paranoia, convincing them that humanity could indeed become a destabilizing force. Back in the Council chambers, this display only intensified the growing division. The factions who favored negotiation saw humanity's demonstration as an act of reasoned caution, evidence that a peaceful coexistence was possible if respect was given. To them, humanity's restraint showed wisdom, an understanding of the risks involved in galactic politics. Yet for the militant factions, the demonstration was a clear provocation. The gap between these viewpoints widened, with neither side willing to yield. The debates became more intense, and accusations flew across the Council floor. Some races openly questioned the Council's ability to maintain control, pointing to humanity's strength and resolve as a sign that the Council's power was slipping. Through it all, humanity continued to observe, weighing each response from the Council and calculating their next move. They understood that their message had been received, that they had shown themselves to be neither aggressive conquerors nor passive subjects. Their stance was one of cautious readiness, an assertion of their independence. The Council's fragmentation was now apparent to all, and humanity had ensured that every faction within the Council understood the cost of trying to bring them to heel. They had demonstrated their capability without a single act of aggression, positioning themselves as a force to be reckoned with, but one open to mutual respect. In the quiet moments following the demonstration, as Council members regrouped to reassess their position, humanity's strategy became clear to all. They had chosen to act with restraint but had shown a resolve that would not be broken easily. Their message was received across Council space. Humanity was prepared for whatever might come, ready to defend their autonomy with unmatched resilience and ingenuity. The Galactic Council, pushed to its breaking point, decided on one final attempt to bring humanity under its control. Days of tense deliberations had resulted in a firm ultimatum, drafted in language that left little room for negotiation. It was a pointed message, laying out what would happen should humanity persist in its refusal. The Council demanded compliance, veiling threats of economic isolation and military response under a veneer of diplomacy. The ultimatum arrived swiftly to humanity's leaders, each word heavy with the implications of their choice. Humanity's leaders gathered, reviewing the ultimatum with a calm that belied the gravity of the Council's demands. For them, this was no surprise. They knew the Council would push to reassert its influence, but it only reinforced humanity's commitment to autonomy. They understood what was at stake, not just their freedom, but the principles they had fought to protect. Humanity's Council considered the implications, the risks and potential repercussions, each leader adding their perspective. Yet, despite the serious tone of the discussion, there was an unshakable resolve among them. Their message was unanimous: they would not bend. The decision was reached, and humanity's response crafted. In a single, powerful transmission, they delivered their answer, rejecting the Council's ultimatum with clear and deliberate words. Humanity's statement, broadcasted across the galaxy, was heard by countless species. They expressed a desire for peace and cooperation but reiterated their stance. They would not be subjugated, nor would they submit to rules imposed without consent. They invited the Council to engage as equals but firmly stated that they would not tolerate attempts to curtail their freedom. The galaxy listened, and the response had the effect of a seismic shift. Species that had long felt marginalized or restricted by the Council's rigid structure took notice. They heard the defiance in humanity's tone, the clarity in their refusal, and it ignited something in them. Across the galaxy, smaller and often overlooked civilizations began questioning their own places within the Council's hierarchy. The idea that one species could defy the Council and assert its independence was intoxicating. Humanity's bold stance, far from isolating them, had set a powerful example. The Galactic Council, watching the effects ripple through the interstellar community, was shaken. Their firm stance, meant to bring humanity in line, had instead exposed cracks in their authority. Among their own ranks, dissent grew as some factions questioned if maintaining absolute control over the galaxy's inhabitants was truly sustainable. Humanity's resilience had not only defied their authority but had encouraged others to envision a galaxy where compliance was not the price of cooperation. In the wake of humanity's defiance, the Council held emergency sessions, forced to acknowledge that their power was not as absolute as they had believed. They faced a galaxy that was now watching with scrutiny, some questioning their legitimacy, others contemplating their own independence. The Council's attempt to use strength and intimidation had instead revealed a shifting order, one where a single species, fueled by principles of autonomy and self-determination, had begun to rewrite the unwritten rules of galactic politics. For humanity, the consequences of their defiance were complex. They knew this was only the beginning of a larger journey, one where challenges would continue to arise. But there was a sense of pride, a fierce determination shared among their people. They had faced down one of the galaxy's most powerful institutions and had not faltered. Humanity's leaders looked to the future with a steadfast commitment to charting their own course, free from the Council's mandates. They understood the weight of their choice but embraced it, standing as a beacon for others. In the Galactic Council's chambers, silence hung as they grappled with the reality of their own limitations. Humanity's refusal had shifted the balance of power in ways they could not fully control, forcing them to reconsider their approach in a galaxy that now knew the Council could be challenged. A sense of both admiration and apprehension grew among Council members as they saw humanity for what it truly was, a force of resilience and independence that would not be easily subdued. The Council had no choice but to accept that the galaxy's future had forever changed, with humanity blazing a trail that others might soon follow.